Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to the Village.
Welcome to the Village.
Welcome to the Village.
If this is your first time tuning in, an extra special welcome to you.
Special welcome to those who may be tuning in for the first time. Welcome. We hope that all of you are encouraged this morning, and we just want to say we miss you, we love you all, and we're going to kick it off for some time of worship.
Cheers.
Sing this with us, church. People come together, strangers and neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, the kingdom come. Don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in His blood. Jesus, light of heaven and friend forever, His kingdom come. Don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. Take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Come on, church. Let's declare this together. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Come on and sing. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Come on, church, sing that again. Swing wide. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in his blood. And Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, his kingdom come.
Hey everyone, Jonathan over here. Welcome to our online gathering, second welcome of the gathering actually for you. I hope that first song, gave you a moment, a couple of minutes to think, to reflect, to pray, maybe to pause long enough to hear the voice of Jesus a little bit louder and a little bit more clearly in your life and in your heart. Again, thanks for joining us wherever you are watching. If you're in your house, if you are away this weekend, wherever you find yourself, if you're in the region of Durham, Whitby, or somewhere else in Ontario, or even Canada. We would love to hear from you as you are watching. So if you want to make a comment on our YouTube page, either if you're watching it live or if you're watching it after the fact, that's all good. We would love to hear from you. You can also make a comment or send us a message on our social media pages. And you can send us an email. Any question that you have about the church, about what's going on here, about some of our giving initiatives, send us an email at connect@thevillagewhitby.ca. We would really love to hear from you. Speaking of some social media stuff, definitely be following us on Facebook or Instagram. Easiest way to know what's going on, what's coming up, if there's been a change in location or event or something like that. You'll also get information on news and opportunities to serve and missional projects and encouraging posts and things like that. If you don't know this already, we are gathering in person on Saturdays at Hebron Church. That is 4240 Anderson Street, just one block north of Taunton in Whitby. And it's been great gathering on Saturday mornings. So good to be together. But we know that not everybody can be there or not everyone is comfortable to be there. So this is why we continue to do our online stuff. And we are so happy to be online and being with you folks in your homes and on your computers and on your screens. A couple of things that are coming up is put this on your calendar. December 23rd, we're doing Christmas Eve. We haven't done it since before COVID. We're just so looking forward to doing this live. It's a really large space at the church that we're at, which is Hebron, and there'll be lots of space for people to kind of just spread out. And so we're looking forward to that night. So remember, December 23rd, we'd love to see you there. Invite a friend to come along with you as well. Something that's going on in November and in December. It's a school partnership that we have with a couple of schools in Oshawa. And so here's what we are doing. We are, first of all, we are going to be giving them a whole bunch of gift cards for them to distribute to families in need. These are schools in the South Oshawa area. And so we are going to be gifting them gift cards from Walmart or from the grocery store. And then they are going to be giving them to families that need them to use for Christmas, to use for Christmas dinner, to use for gifts, for whatever they need, actually, because they are families that definitely can use it. So if you want to help us with that, just give either via Canada Helps or via email. Information's on our website. And just let us know that it's going, you want it to go to the school partnership. And so we would make sure that it helps us send them those funds. But what we're also doing, which is really important, the next couple of weeks, we are gathering food for Woodcrest Public School and hats and mitts for both Woodcrest and Village Union. You can either drop these off in person on Saturdays over the next few weeks, And if you can't be there but want to drop them off at an address, there is an address on our Instagram post about this partnership and this project. And so follow the instructions on that. Also follow those instructions for what food to buy. You can't just drop off any food. There are instructions on that Instagram post on what you are allowed to actually donate. I'll tell you right now what it is. It's granola bars that are peanut free or strawberry free, or bags of apples. That's what we are going to be helping them with as far as food goes. So those are a few things that are going on. I want to ask this quick question. What are you praying for these days? Who are you praying for these days? As you hear about things in our world, as an injustice happens, as the news may disturb you, do you pause and pray for that? As God puts somebody on your heart or on your mind, do you pause and pray for them? So my encouragement to you is to do that. I just wanted to kind of invite you to do that so we can be praying for each other and praying for needs in our world and in our region. All right, I'm going to hit pause, or you hit pause, or just wait, because I'm going to be back in a second and I'm going to start teaching. Peace. All right, I am back, just as promised. Thanks for sticking around and not shutting off your screens. So we're continuing in this series in James. Can't wait to get into it today. We're kind of slowly walking through this book of the New Testament, and it has been wonderful so far. So starting this way, like getting sick and discovering you are sick are kind of two different things, or there's different ways of figuring out that you are sick. Sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're told before. For instance, I think there's two ways we discover that we are sick. One is that we feel sick. So we inquire from a doctor how bad that is. They may diagnose us. And if they find out if there's anything we can do to get better, and then we follow those instructions and hopefully we get better. Sometimes actually we don't feel sick at all. We've heard this term a lot here, asymptomatic. And we feel very healthy. We feel pretty healthy. And while we're doing some kind of routine checkup, a doctor might say, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, sort of tell you, but you're actually not well. You are unhealthy. You are sick, and we have to figure out how we can help you. I'm not sure which way is better or which way is worse to find out or figure out that you are sick. Feeling terribly unhealthy and then knowing that you need help and doing what you can to be better, or feeling healthy and then being told that you have to take meds to help you feel better, even though you're having a hard time believing that you are actually sick. Because do I really need this medicine? I'm not feeling sick, but the doctor tells you that you are. I have a really good friend. We've prayed for him and his family, over the last few months at the Village. His name is Aaron. And for these past few years, he's already been, taking care of his lovely, amazing wife, who has been paralyzed for 6 years due to a progression in her MS. And they were checking a few things in him and in his health, although he was feeling basically fine. Then they checked him. They said he was okay. Then they said, let's check a little bit more, back and forth. And all that led to him finding out that he was diagnosed with stage 1 lymphoma. Then he said, please check a little bit further. They find out that he actually had stage 3 lymphoma. And I'll never forget these words, because he was feeling fine, feeling healthy, feeling good, not feeling sick in any way. But when in one of our conversations, he said this, he said, some cancer patients can't wait for chemo because they believe it's gonna make them feel better, because they have been feeling terrible, and then they're hoping that this will fight what's going on and make them feel better. Other patients, like me, he said, have to convince themselves that they need chemo, that they need this medicine, even though I feel totally fine. Two very different scenarios. Both people, though, are dealing with health issues. Now, some people say that ignorance is bliss, but in reality, it is not, because knowledge and truth is always, always better, especially when it comes to your health, be it physical, be it mental health, be it spiritual health. The more you know, the more you can do about what is not well inside of you. Now, this is how one of my favorite theologians, N.T. Wright, describes the text in James that we're going to look at today. It seems like James is identifying an area of sickness or an area of unhealthiness in his church community that he's writing these words to. And the way he writes about it, it may be a surprise to his readers. They're like, whoa, we didn't think we were not well. We didn't think that we were dealing with this. It's almost like as he says this, you could hear them saying as they're reading this, what, really? But we feel healthy. We feel good. We thought we were doing okay. As many of you know, we have been in this extended series in the New Testament book of James. It's been amazing. It's called Faith That Works. And what we've learned throughout this series is that everything James includes in this short letter in the New Testament is a challenge or it's an invitation to help us figure out how faith works itself out in our lives, in the nitty gritty, in the everyday stuff, in the practical stuff. Like why he's almost saying this, why have faith if it doesn't work? Why believe in something if your life doesn't reflect it? What is faith if it's not played out in real time and in real spaces in your real, genuine, actual life that you are living? And it seems like every part of this book that we are walking through is kind of revealing the same kind of thing. Make your faith real. Make sure that the faith that you have in Jesus is working, and it does work if you are truly following Jesus. And today's text is no different. So as we've been doing over the last few weeks, we're just going to jump right in. Are you ready? We are in James chapter 3, verse 13 to 18. Today, I'm going to start just with reading the first verse, verse 13. James says this, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom." I mean, I love how he starts with a question. I am a fan of questions. If I had to pick, I'd rather have more questions than answers because questions keep the conversation going, right? You know that the best conversations start with the best questions, and the best conversations continue because people continue to ask good questions. Was James expecting a response from them? I'm not sure, but if this was asked live to them, because it was in written form, who would have actually had the confidence to put up their hand and say, I'm wise, I'm understanding? You kind of wouldn't do it. You would feel a little awkward to answer this question. Of course, everyone wants to be in this category or this group, wise and have understanding, because it's a good place to be. And it's almost like saying, if you are, you probably wouldn't show it off. James is saying, if you are wise and you do have understanding, you're not going to kind of flaunt it, and you probably don't think you are. And if you've ever heard that you are, it's only from other people that have observed you and may have said something to you about some wisdom or humility that you've shown. And it's exactly like humility, which James talks about this as well, right? You don't tell people that you're humble. The minute you tell people you're humble, well, you know that you're not humble. So, good thing this is on paper. It's not live. So no one can embarrass themselves with a response and say, hey, I'm wise, I'm smart, right? James responds with the assumption that they've said yes. And so then he speaks accordingly. And he says, well, if you are wise, then show me. If you are wise, then your life will tell us that you are wise. You will have a good life. Your life will reflect good deeds, and your life will reflect a certain kind of humility. Then James continues, and he distinguishes between two kinds of wisdom. There's earthly wisdom and heavenly wisdom. There's unspiritual wisdom and there is spiritual wisdom. This is what he is saying to us. So verse 14 goes like this. But if you are bitterly jealous and there is selfish ambition in your heart, don't cover up the truth with boasting and lying. Another translation says, don't boast about your jealousy, about your selfish ambition. Verse 15 says, for jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Another translation says that jealousy and selfishness are not wisdom that comes from heaven or from above. Such things, James says, are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. Seems to use that word quite a bit. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and evil of every kind. These are James' words in these next two verses. So here's where James is saying to them, you actually don't really know that you're sick. I'm bringing out something that I've observed, and I want to let you know that this is something that we need to deal with, even though that you might feel like you're totally healthy and everything is okay, right? Did you know that you've been caught up with bitter jealousy and selfish ambition? Think about those two things: bitter jealousy, selfish ambition. Do you know what that is short for, right? Bitter jealousy, selfish ambition starts with a B, and then there's an S. The initials equal BS. Now you think, John, I can't believe you're saying this online. That's kind of where he's going with this. If these are the qualities you are leaning on, the traits that are prevalent in your life or home or in your community, he's saying, please don't boast about it. Don't think that this is wisdom or that you are smart. This is not the case. Even if it's getting you somewhere, or you think it's getting you somewhere, or you're succeeding because of this activity, it's actually a falsity. The only reason any of us resort to that kind of behavior is because it's getting us somewhere. It's because it's helping us succeed. It's because it's maybe moving us up some kind of society ladder, cultural ladder, business ladder, success ladder, whatever the case may be. And James warns against bitter jealousy. Now, being zealous with a Z, and being jealous actually is pretty close. The Greek word comes from a similar root. So it's a similar root that you can go either way, zealous or jealous. And the difference is that jealousy is zeal or passion that is selfishly motivated. And James is kind of warning them about this. Now, the Greek word for selfish ambition in the time frame was used for greedy politicians. Now think about this. Politicians are supposed to work for the people, but the selfish politicians only work for themselves. Hence, the word selfish ambition is attributed to them and was attributed to them in the 1st and 2nd century. And I'm sure we can attribute this to some politicians, these days as well. So what does James call this kind of behavior, this kind of wisdom? He uses 3 words. He says earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. 3 expressive words, especially the last one. So of course, earthly is simply the opposite of heavenly. Unspiritual is the opposite of spiritual. And demonic is what it is, of the devil. James seems to be comfortable using words like demonic, devil, Satan, evil. He doesn't shy away from it. Actually, he uses them quite comfortably, and he's not afraid to call it what it is. And he's saying, I'm sorry to tell you, but I see evil there, and it is influenced by some kind of demonic activity. And now, in his mind, if we consider these things, bitter jealousy, selfish ambition, to be wise and smart ways to live, James is saying it will eventually lead to discord, division, and evil. And really, there's no other way to put it. These things lead to that. So he says there is another way. There is a better way. There is a godly way, a way that is more like Jesus, a way that is more like above and not so much below. And this gets us to verse 17 in James chapter 3. He says, but the wisdom that comes from heaven or from above is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Now here is where James is actually leading us in this text. This is where he wants us to land, to understand what wisdom from above is. He has shown us what wisdom is not. Now he shows us what wisdom is, what it should look like, what it looks like if you get wisdom from the right place, how it plays out in our lives. He just can't get away from making everything practical. This is the way of James. And this is why many people love this book, because they read it and they get so much practical things from it, right? A few weeks ago, we talked about faith and action. He says faith without action, without deeds, without good things is dead. Well, today he says wisdom that is not from above will not lead you to righteousness or the good life. So wisdom from above, wisdom from God, wisdom through Jesus, wisdom from heaven is, and then he lists these things: pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, which is just yielding to others, full of mercy and good deeds, impartial and sincere and genuine. Now, who doesn't want their life to be compared to those kind of words, right? Those characteristics. Definitely. I mean, I want my life, if someone looks at me, to say, Jonathan is those things: pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good deeds, sincere, impartial, right? Now, if you read them, they kind of sound like Paul's fruit of the Spirit from Galatians chapter 5. But James calls them, I'm paraphrasing here, the fruit of godly wisdom. This is interesting. The Old Testament word for wisdom and the Old Testament word for spirit is similar. It's Sophia, which is also a feminine tense of that. So the same word for spirit and the same word for wisdom, they're connected together. So that's why we can kind of make that comparison, fruit of the Spirit or fruit of godly wisdom. Now, I'm not saying that those lists are the same. If you read Galatians chapter 5, you're going to see differences from James chapter 3. But James is saying something similar in that if we are overtaken by godly wisdom, if we are filled with godly wisdom, if our lives are led by wisdom from above, then these traits, these fruit will follow. They will be evidence in our life of the wisdom that we have from God. Now, isn't this why Jesus invites us to pray? Look back to Matthew chapter 6. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? This is the prayer of Jesus. God, bring below what is above. Bring to me what is in heaven. May the same godly qualities that originate above be evident in my life, in our lives here below, here on earth, on earth as it is in heaven. So we shouldn't skim over something like this, but really think about each word. And actually, more than that, pray about how these words can be so evident and real inside of me and through me. Now, in the Greek, these are very poetic words. They're a bit of an acronym. The first few words are all with the letter E. The last few words are all with the letter A. So there's a poetic sense in the original language. They're definitely purposeful, and we know because of James's writing, they are definitely practical. So if we can just take a couple of minutes here and just really think about and reflect about these words, right? James says that godly wisdom is pure. Anything pure has an absence of a sinful or evil motive. It's not self-seeking. There is a beautiful, genuine purity to it. He says that wisdom from above is peace-loving, which is the opposite of competitiveness or the opposite of selfishness. Wisdom from God is considerate. And some say that considerate is one of the most beautiful New Testament character words that we can find. It's also reflective of God's disposition, like a God-like character, not insisting on your own rights. That's a beautiful characteristic to have as a person, but definitely it has to be something that a follower of Jesus has, that you think of others above yourself, which leads us to the next word. You think about and pray about the word submissive, and it's simply this: not self-seeking, that you're ready to yield, you're ready to put down something of value that you have so that somebody else can benefit. Then he says, wisdom from above, a godly wisdom, is full of mercy and it's full of good deeds, which just kind of brings together the understanding of compassion and the understanding of the characteristic that we have because of this wisdom allows us or gives us the ability to be helpful towards others. And then these last two words, impartial and sincere. And that word impartial brings us back to some of James' words on what it means not to show favoritism towards people and not to bring division between human beings, but rather to bring people together and not to think of others higher than, one person higher than someone else based on class or money or race or color or whatever the case may be. And then this beautiful word sincere. And that word sincere simply means this: without hypocrisy. And if there's anything that maybe the church sometimes gets critiqued about, fairly, if it's the case, is that, you know, they're a bunch of hypocrites at this place. Why? They're simply saying, I don't see a sincerity there. They talk about Jesus, they tell me about Jesus, but I don't necessarily see the characteristics of Jesus. And this is, again, why James is saying all this stuff. He wants this church that he's speaking to, that he loves so much, to be people that their lives reflect their faith in Jesus. So let these words sink in so they become words that describe you, that describe me, that describe us as a church community, you know, in Whitby and anywhere really. And then James ends this chapter with this beautiful metaphor of sowing and reaping, of planting and growing. And we read this last verse in this text in chapter 3, verse 18. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. So if you are a person with godly wisdom, you'll be a person of peace. And if you're a person of peace, you will plant peace. And people who plant peace will bear the fruit of righteousness and goodness. Jesus invites us, we know this from Matthew 6 as well, Matthew 5 actually, he invites us to be peacemakers. And more than that, he says that we are blessed if we are makers of peace, if we are architects of peace, if we are those kinds of people. And if we're those kinds of people, peacemakers, then we will plant peace wherever we go. This is something that we want to do freely and lovingly. We kind of see it as our personal mission to plant peace, to be makers of peace, producers of peace. And not only will we plant peace, but we will cultivate the ground to help peace grow. And we'll water the seeds of peace, and we'll curate the environment so peace grows, the seeds that we planted. And this, says James, is how righteousness grows, and this is how goodness grows. This is how godliness grows, right? This is how it happens, by planting peace. So the question is, what are you planting these days? What is it that you are cultivating the ground around you to plant these days? And if it's not bearing the kind of fruit we read about in James, then maybe we're not planting the right seeds. Because he says, if you plant peace, then righteousness will grow. So this is our privilege as followers of Jesus, to plant the seeds of peace, to live out wisdom that comes from God. It's going to look different. It may not make you successful in some people's eyes, but I'm going to tell you this, it will resonate with people more than you realize. There is a certain beauty, goodness, and attraction to righteousness that grows through peace and through godly wisdom. So we need to be faithful to this kind of living, to this kind of wisdom, to this kind of work, because that is what James calls the good life. You know, I think about that term, the good life, and it makes me think about the summer. It makes me think about driving to Northern Ontario. It makes me think about Muskokas and Haliburton area and the Kawarthas. And you go in these shops and in these kind of like in Huntsville and all these, I love walking those streets. And often you'll see like live the good life or life is good. And we associate that with, you know, sitting on a great chair at the dock or swimming or being at the beach or driving cottage roads, sitting in a cottage, fishing, you know, boating, paddling, all that stuff. And it is good and it's amazing and it's wonderful. But James says, listen, there's more to good life than that. That's enjoyable and that's wonderful. And I hope that you have it because I love it too. But this is the good life, that we are peacemakers that plant peace and then reap a harvest of righteousness. That, folks, that is the good life that Jesus calls us to. And I hope and pray that as we take the time to think about it, pray about it, and accept Jesus' invitation to live that life, that we will actually experience that kind of good life. Let's pray. God, thank you as we speak about goodness, for your goodness in our lives. Thank you that we read a text like this today and we are challenged to be makers, producers, architects of peace in the world. And that we are invited, God, to receive wisdom that comes from you that leads us to a life that is pure, to fruit that is good, to kindness, to gentleness, to consideration, to compassion, to sincerity, to people that are not impartial, not that we don't show favoritism towards others. God, I pray that we would accept the invitation to do this good work of planting peace in our world. And that through that planting and through that watering and through that cultivating and through that nurturing, that we would see righteousness and goodness and mercy and grace grow in our neighborhoods, in our homes, in our cities, in our regions. That's our prayer today. Thank you that what we're reading in James is so practical. And I hope and pray that as we learn more of it, the weeks that pass, the weeks that are coming, that our faith would be real, authentic, and honest, and it would bear fruit in the world that we live in. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Peace, love, recycle.